Episode 19, Prevailations Podcast. This is Sean and Danny. We own and operate Prevail Strength and Fitness Edmond, Prevail Strength 2, North Yukon, Northwest OKC, whatever area that is, it's called. We also have Lean Strength Online Nutrition Coaching and Prevail Adventure Club and Danny G Photography. And we're making a human. And
the human is currently growing.
Yes. Today we're going to dive into main topic is going to be if you can work out 6 days in a row, then you're not really working out.
Yes.
That's kind of the idea, right? We're going to wrap up a few different things that we've seen. This fake strength class that we went to, which kind of leans into this idea of if you can do something all the time, then are you really moving forward with something?
Yep.
We had we have a new instructor training camp, prospect training camp going on, and we talked about the evolution of the Prevail program, the core principles behind it, where it came from, where it's what's made it what it is today, and the idea about being everything or being inclusive, exclusive, or being a solution for everyone. Kind of you see a lot of models to where, and people too, there's a lot of people who love that.
Yes.
Where you think of, if you can do one product, one type of thing, 6 days in a row or 6 days a week, then you're really not doing anything.
Right.
Which is different because we say there's a huge difference between saying oh, if you work out 6 days in a row, then you're not getting any progress.
Right.
What we really mean is if you're doing the same thing 6 days, you're never going to see progress.
Yeah.
Because.
Oh, he's just diving in.
Well, we can do.
Already.
6 days of stuff.
Yes.
But there's no way we would do 6 days of Prevail workouts.
Right.
And that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Between strength training.
Yeah.
And doing 6 days of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Did you have other updates?
Yeah,
Oh.
we have life fun updates before we get into that. So if you've been following along on the social media.
What's today's date?
Okay, today is Wednesday, March 12th.
2025.
2025.
Okay.
So we announced location 2 at the end of, I guess the middle of February, February 18th or 15th or something, 16th, 17th, somewhere around there. Yeah. We announced location 2.
Yeah.
So that's when papers were officially signed.
Mm-hmm.
We went in there this weekend and no construction was made yet. So the space isn't ready for us to move into the space.
Yeah. So that would have been March 9th.
March 9th.
In the space and nothing had happened yet.
Yes. We stopped by because we saw some trucks there March 10th. So Monday, so the next afternoon, and they had already torn down the middle wall and started building the office, which is great. So they will have to finish the build out on the office, the bathrooms. Walls will be painted.
Yep.
Some other lights, fans, structures before we actually move in, but we're going to try to update you guys along with the process.
Yeah.
So we were I was very excited to see the wall removed because we've toured the space a few times now and it's not hard to imagine a wall being knocked down in the middle, but it felt so good to be in there without the wall.
Yeah. Because every other time before we walked into one 1,500 square space, walked out and walked into the other one that shared the same wall. And so every time we made some digital versions to kind of see, but when you're standing inside of a space, and you always have to imagine the other half in your brain, and finally to have that wall gone, which was interesting because as soon as before when the wall was there, we thought, oh my goodness, this space is going to be way too wide. It's going to be too much space between the things.
Yeah.
How are we going to how are you going to manage the center space because it's going to be so big and noise and speakers and instructor.
Everyone hearing everything.
Right. And then you knock the wall down and you stand in the exact same space, but since you can use more of your peripheral,
It doesn't seem as big.
Right. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird how it went. Like,
But
the room like shrunk a little bit.
But the ceilings are really tall, so it does feel very large.
Yeah.
But it's really not that much bigger than our Edmond location.
It's actually, it's weird. One of the things that's really unique is that our Edmond location is exactly 39 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
The rack.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the rack is 39 feet. The actual wall is 49, but one side has an office, one side is the entrance. Right? So from like the usable like mat where people are like doing stuff at is 39 feet. We walked into this space and it's exactly 39 feet.
He always be talking about feet.
It's just crazy that the width of the rack and storage is the exact same distance in both locations.
Yeah.
It's really, really wild. But it is wider by quite a bit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's a bigger space for sure, but.
Yeah. It's almost 500 square feet bigger.
Yeah.
But where the 500 square feet come from.
It feels
right,
larger than 500.
It's way different where you would think the 500 would come from like our other location.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so we
What
got
are
a Yukon update. Currently 17 weeks pregnant, almost 18 weeks, and none of my jeans fit anymore. So that is an update. Maybe like 2 pairs I could like wear for a little bit.
Yeah, but on the exercise side, nothing has really stopped or slowed down, right? I mean, there's not been any huge changes except for like. Your natural energy before was like you would work out for
I was like
65, 70, 90 minutes
bouncing off the walls all the time.
But now you're back to like a regular human energy.
Yeah, I've heard this from many people that like, oh, you're just normal now.
Yeah.
The only thing exercise-wise, which I made a post on this, so if you guys are interested in following along, follow my Instagram, Danny_Prevail. But my squat stance, I'm going a little wider because it feels better on my hips. And then hip lifts, heavy barbell hip lifts are probably going to be removed from my...
Yeah, what do you mean by heavy, though? What's that, like, load?
Yeah, anything over, like, 100 pounds, 120 pounds.
Right.
So, like, a barbell. Like, I will make something happen with dumbbells or maybe add more pads, but it's just... that area is pretty tender. Right.
Probably get into more like single leg stuff and
yeah. Do more deadlifts or
right. Yeah. So there's been no real big.
Not any huge.
We haven't changed anything. You were doing full, like hanging leg raises and like just last week.
Yeah, last week. Yeah.
You know at how many weeks? 16 weeks. Yeah.
Almost 17.
Yeah. So when there's like, do you have limitations with exercise?
I've had this question a few times.
No.
Or restrictions. Right? Yeah.
It's the same thing. There will be physical limitations because of like, obviously space.
Where the belly grows and gets.
Right. But I think the thing that gets weird is like, just because I'm pregnant, it means blank and blank. Right. This kind of like arbitrary numbers like, oh, I can only lift 20 pounds, which is so crazy because how many moms do we know that have like toddlers who pick them up and then their doctors are like, you can't pick up 20 pounds. They're like, well, what about my
30-pound kid?
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Anyways, you really treat load and exercise intensity is just based on where the individual is and where they can go. What's the next approachable like load management?
Yes.
So if someone's new to exercise, their load management is different than someone who is not new to exercise.
Right.
Well, if someone has coming from some sort of like knee injury or some sort of like sickness, right? Or they're going through some sort of surgery or through some sort of pregnancy, it's just load management.
Yes.
And it's just knowing where you are and going, okay, well, I'm just going to manage load.
Yeah.
And if anything feels weird, I make adjustments. And that's the same thing that happens regardless if someone is...
Regardless.
It doesn't matter.
Pregnant or not. Right. Yeah. And I think I'm trying to be like very conscious of that because as a first time pregnant person, I mean, I think it's like, it's easy to get in your head and think that you do have limitations because things are just different and things do feel a little different, but I really want to maintain and gain as much muscle as I can during the next 5 months, so that postpartum can, will be as best as it can be.
Yeah, right.
I know it won't be easy, but
right.
you know, maintaining as much muscle mass, and that means for me going relatively heavy.
Right. Right. To your heavy.
Yeah, to my heavy.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So that was pregnancy update.
Pregnancy update, exercise. I guess we could kind of just roll that into the same idea about how many days a week.
Oh, okay.
You can.
Yeah.
So if you think about.
Okay, before we get into this topic, I want to say this because we mean this by no hate at all if you love to work out, because I love to do something all of the time.
Yeah.
So there's some there's like asterisks to this.
The greatest
and what we mean by it.
The greatest thing about this form of communication with podcasts is that you get to understand context.
Yes.
On Facebook captions or Instagram reels or images only.
Yes.
You have to say the specific amount of information to get something across, but you don't have any way to put like real context to it.
Yes.
And context is the gray area, and we love the gray area.
Yes.
We love the it depends, because that's what makes individualization so great, is once you understand the gray area, you can capitalize on getting the most amount of progress because you understand context.
Yes.
Instead of this on-off kind of black-white approach to everything.
Yes. So if you currently are exercising every day, we are not throwing hate your way, but we're going to go over
the context of that
things.
is, let's just say, if someone is, and when we say, if you're working out 6 days a week doing the same thing, you're not going to make progress. We're saying that because we're assuming the goal is progress.
Yes.
But that's not everyone's goal.
Yes.
Because let's just say that someone has their, they are physically at a healthy standpoint, healthy body fat percentage, healthy capability in their life. They have a healthy community at whatever gym they go to. I'm going to argue whether or not they have a mentally healthy aspect with exercise. If you are addicted, right?
Okay.
That's one thing. But outside of that, if someone is going to the gym 6 days a week, and that's for their mental health, from like their process, from their habit, from them being around people they want to be around, right? That's like part of their day. That's them winning their equation, right? At the same sense, if that same person is chronically fatigued, if that same person hasn't made, and they want, that person has not made any strength gains, has not made any muscle gains, has not made any function or mobility gains,
or body composition progress,
then there's a problem, right? And
or
that's
maybe getting injured a lot,
right,
or always feels like trash.
Right. Or you're sacrificing other parts of your life just to cross this off of like this checklist.
Right.
That's when we get into a conversation of like, well, are we really doing the right thing for us? And we see this often when people who come from those environments come into Prevail, and they're like, what do you mean I only come 3 days a week? Like, why?
Right.
Well, I thought I had to come 6 days a week. Well, I'm not saying you have to. But what we're saying is, if you're coming to us because you want to get stronger, you want to get leaner, you want the, you want consistency of exercise, you don't want to get burnt out, well, then the dosage is appropriate, because the system is built around you. If you can come into Prevail more than 4 sessions, 5 is a huge gray asterisk, and for sure 6. The only way you can make it 6 days in a week and Prevail is if you half-ass all the workouts.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to, like, what's the goal? Is the goal to make ourselves convinced that we're working out every day and that's going to make us get progress?
Right.
Well, then that's not really then then we need more education. We need more information.
Yeah.
We can't chase intensity thinking that's going to get us a result.
Right. And we can get into this too, but there's different ways to get movement in 6 to 7 days a week. That's not.
Yeah. That the original part of, we were answering questions about, how do we come up with what we came up with, or the schedule we came up with, and changing, because when Prevail came around, it was this circuit style, which gets into that session we went into in Scottsdale. It was this circuit style, 8 to 12 stations at this, like, I don't know, 45 or minutes of work and 15 seconds of switch and rotate, and it was very face past.
So we did this class. It was labeled strength.
Well, I meant
but in
original
general?
Prevail sweatshop.
Oh, okay.
It was the same principle
Yes.
of like,
Yeah.
here's 12 things. The 2 or 3 of you are going to do this one thing,
and
then
then
they're
you
going to
rotate.
move, and then you're going to move, then you're going to move, then you're going to move.
Yeah.
Which has been around forever. Obviously, still is around.
Still around. Yeah.
The reason we stopped doing that was because we were looking at people around the room who'd been with us for 9 months or longer, and none of them were seeing any more progress.
Yeah.
Like, no one was getting stronger at their lifts. No one's body composition was improving. No one's, function or mobility or their ability to do anything. Nothing was getting better. And I was like, well, they all lost their weight because they went from, well, now I'm doing consistent movement and I've changed some nutrition things. Well, the only thing that they can do for body composition now from weight loss is to spend more time with nutrition,
Yes.
which we can't control.
Right.
But we can control what's happening inside the room so that we can guarantee other results,
Yes.
right? Which is a big shift when we went to like, oh, if no one ever needs a rest day, that means that they're never actually putting in the right amount of work. Because when we got into our Strong First stuff, science.
You should need a recovery day.
Right, because the body, when you go, just break this down real quick.
Yes.
When you go to exercise,
Uh-huh.
you give it a stimulus, an input.
Okay.
Whether that be resistance training or conditioning or mobility or whatever it is. The body then, when it's done doing its thing, in the time after, that is a window where the body wants to adapt to that stimulus. You give it a lull to adapt, and then you give it another or repeated stimulus, so it has a repeated adaptation. If there's never a lull, there's never the opportunity for adaptation. So if you're doing something every day, you're never giving your body any time to adapt from stimulus. It's just more and 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 more, which checks our like scratch for intensity.
Yes.
That little itch of like I'm doing something gets scratched, but that's it.
Yeah.
There's no long-term progress or even like short-term from a sense of weeks or months progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is the tough part. So we drop into this gym in Scottsdale.
Yes, and I will say that it was very cute.
Very
The branding was on point.
Very cute. Super popular. Tons of people.
Tons. It was a 50-person class.
Yeah, it was the 4th session on Sunday that was full.
Yeah.
So the aesthetics are good. The organization of the room was smart. The equipment was smart. The branding was smart.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell, like, someone's paid a lot of attention to it. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. They had a bunch of, they were sweat classes.
Yeah, so we get on the schedule, and there was, like, a morning yoga, and then there were 2 sweat sesh.
Yep.
And then it said, high intensity, the whole thing. And then the one we picked was strength session.
Right.
So we were like, oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do the strength workout.
So the room was about the size of our Edmond location, maybe a little smaller. The actual workout room.
Yes.
The building was bigger, but they had like
the building was huge,
a lobby and a hallway and a stairwell and like a spin room. But this specific floor was
smaller than
Prevail.
Yeah.
Floor.
Yep.
So we get in there and the instructor's on a mic and she's wearing, she was transitioning from one session to the other one, moving around, getting stuff ready. No real one-to-one conversation ever.
No.
Which I was like, this is interesting. And which it made sense because we were there 12 minutes before maybe.
Yeah. Yes, we always like to, if you haven't been into our sessions yet, we like to have a one-on-one conversation if somebody is new to the session.
Yeah.
So we try to not be late when we're dropping in.
We always try to be early. And you never know because like it may give us an opportunity to meet the instructor or the person running the front desk or the GM or the owner, which always gives us an opportunity to like talk shop and like, chit chat for a little bit. In the next 12 minutes, there was probably like 7 to 8 people in the room. and like 40 more people showed up.
They were just
And
rolling
I was
in
like,
there.
what is going on here?
Wild,
right? There's a tiny chalkboard in the corner that had the workout, which you couldn't read really.
no.
You could see that there was like stuff all over the floor and stations, and the stations, this is what cracks me up, is the stations were on these little like
these little
clipboard style,
like little tiny whiteboards
with it like dry erased on there.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy because that's exactly what I was doing pre-Prevail, working for that gym in 2011.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this has not gone away.
Yeah.
They just did a phenomenal job with like the music and the noise and the branding.
Yes. Yeah.
And
It was good.
So it ends up being, I think that there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stations.
Mm-hmm.
Each station had 2 back exercises.
Yes.
And so there's 12 exercises.
Yes, and it was 40 every station you were at. There were 2 movements in the station.
Yep.
You would work for 40 seconds. You would rest and transition for 10 seconds.
Yep.
To the other one, and you went through 3 rounds of both movements.
Right. So it's basically 3 sets of, I mean, it's roughly 15 reps ish inside of 40 seconds, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
So you do basically 3 by 15 of 12 sets in
Yes.
about 40 minutes.
Yes.
42, 45 minutes maybe,
Yeah.
right?
Fast.
It was pretty fast. Which, okay, we think that's about twice as many exercises as you need. 1.
Yes.
But whatever. They are doing strength patterns. So I'm like, okay, cool. So there's like, they had TRX rows
yes.
paired up with an Arnold press. I was like, oh, that makes sense. The fact that I can't get to my 3rd set without going down in weight or quality going out the window, that's another aspect. And the other one was like hip lifts with banded adductions. Like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And the next station was incline push-ups paired up with decline push-ups.
Yeah. And
which is nuts.
Somebody who's like, I mean, I would say I'm like efficient in push-ups.
Yeah.
No, I can't even like, I have 40 seconds of push-ups right into another 40 seconds of push-ups into another 40 seconds of, like, I'm worthless.
Right.
And then the poor people around me are looking at me like, what should I do? I'm like, well, I would just drop down. you know, I would like take your incline or decline out.
Yeah. And so it was so close to being a really great actual strength session.
Mm-hmm.
If they would have had half the amount of exercises and tripled the amount of rest, you could have gotten 6 high quality exercises. You could have gotten like 4 sets of practice. You could have maintained high quality, high reps, and the quality of the session would have been way better. But what would have been different? The entertainment.
Yes.
This is what comes back. Can you do something 6 days a week?
Yeah.
Because
it was fun
it
and
was
lively.
Fun, it was loud,
and
the music was fast.
Yeah.
There was no time to think about what you were doing, which also meant there's no time to be potentially bored.
Yeah. Well, and then in the middle of the strength session, we
Right.
had a 5-minute burpee EMOM. So everyone stops what they're doing. She sets another clock, and we do 10 burpees on the minute.
Yeah.
And then the next minute, 30
jumping
split
lunges.
squats. Yeah, jumping lunges, and then back to burpees, and then back. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you think about the other station before that, which probably had just a whole bunch more jumpy stuff, their difference between sweat and strength was doing strength exercises compared to doing plyometric and heart rate exercises.
Right.
However, it wasn't heavy enough and it wasn't specific enough to where you would actually know that you're getting stronger.
Yeah. So, I mean, this goes back to like, we don't do stuff like that at the studio. And I wasn't even kind of sore the next day because I wasn't able to actually push myself enough in those exercises because they were just so fast that like I didn't even get any like huge, like, oh yeah, like I did a ton of work on my arms or my legs or whatever, like where I need to take a rest day the next day.
Right.
So I could see where you would get into this, like, oh yeah, I just like sweated a whole bunch and I feel trashed after that workout. But you wake up the next day and you're kind of like, oh yeah, I just didn't like, I wasn't able to really push myself in those 60 minutes.
Right.
So
right.
I can just do it again.
Right. Right. And that's where obviously they're doing a great job. Right. Who knows how many members they have.
It was a fun class.
There must have been 200 people in and out of that space in the first 6 hours on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, they do a good job at that is the product.
Yes.
We want you to be entertained. We want you to have a good time.
Yes.
We're going to be doing stuff that's not completely stupid.
This is like to start your Sunday fun day off. Like,
right. But it's not also like, do we really want measurable strength and muscle gains?
Right.
Maybe. Do we really want you to have a phenomenal 50-minute experience?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're going to own that.
Yeah.
And that's where if you're doing something 6 days a week, and you want to be entertained 6 days a week, that's great. That's awesome. But don't expect the same sort of long-term results, because that's more like thinking of, I don't know. You can watch, like, take Friends for an example, right? You can watch one session of Friends and be entertained.
Yes.
One session, right? You can watch it for weeks and be entertained. There's a little bit of background, like, continue rolling over, but not huge.
Yeah.
Compared to if you take, like, a Yellowstone type of approach, or some, like, series that you love.
Yes.
Right? A Game of Thrones type of, like...
You're going to want to, like, watch that.
Right. A session
weekly.
ends and you're like, what happens next? Because it's all building on itself to make a bigger and bigger and bigger story.
Yeah.
And that's what high quality structured strength training is.
Yeah.
So can you watch 6 days a week of
Friends?
Of Friends? Can you watch 6 days a week of Saturday morning cartoons?
Yes.
Right.
You're right.
In theory, you could watch 6 days a week of Yellowstone, but at the end of the year, you're going to run out.
Right.
That's why, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It just can't keep going on and on forever. But you could watch Saturday morning cartoons every day for years and years and years and be entertained every session. But at the end of the year, you're like, well, was I really told a really great story that I remember?
Yeah.
And that's the difference between having something where it's structured and there's not only is there rest between days, there's actually rest between exercises.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this was hard for me personally for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't even know, like, what happened when I was like okay with moving to a 3 to 4. It's probably because I realized what, like, strength training was, and that if I wanted to, like, go heavy as, like, I wanted to go, that I wasn't going to be able to do it 6 days a week.
The common misconception is the more that I work, the better results I get.
Yes. Well, and that, like, that feeling of going to a class like that, I mean, we walked out and I was like, yeah, I do feel like I did something for 60 minutes. And sometimes I can have, like, a heavy strength day and I don't really feel it until, like, 6 hours later, 12 hours later.
Right.
30 hours later.
And I think that's what's also super hard about doing really smart strength training is that you finish the session and you feel good.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you've done, like, a really super hard, intense workout.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I could do whatever I want for the rest of the day. I could probably do another workout.
Yeah.
Strength training.
And if it's not hot outside, then if you're not sweating that much, like, I know sweat can kind of be like, I didn't even get sweaty. Yeah. So, you know.
Was it even worth it?
Right.
And that's just because we've been force-fed this idea that intensity creates results.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with it. I mean, it has marginal to do with it.
Yeah.
But then there's also this big wave of people talking about stress and cortisol and like stress hormones. And what does a super hard 45-minute session do?
Elevate your cortisol.
It jacks up everything, right? Yeah. But it also scratches your intensity itch. But now you're chasing stress.
Yeah.
And every exercise should always be stress. But if you're not modulating the types of stress, then not surprised there's no more progress.
And then it goes back to, what's the goal? Is your goal to get stronger at squats, or is it to get faster at doing squats? Or do you want to do like, more squats in 1 minute versus, I'm just throwing things out there.
Yeah. That's the difference between having a strength endurance based goal and a strength goal.
Yeah.
But that's also, am I chasing heart rate for my session?
Right. Yeah.
You're like, well, I'm going to do whatever it takes so that I can manage a feeling of higher heart rate, but then nothing else happens. And the higher heart rate, we've been told that just creates more progress. And really, once you get over a baseline of movement, there's like a point of diminishing return with heart rate stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're doing 6 days a week of high heart rate exercise, and that's trying to create a result of like calorie burn, or you think that's going to burn more fat, which is definitely not true at all, you've tapped out your energy balance.
Yeah.
So if you're eating 2,000 calories a day and you're burning 500 every workout, or 600, whatever number arbitrarily,
yeah,
and you're like, well, I'm going to push a hard heart rate so that I go from 600 to 700 calories in an hour. Well, once you do that 6 days a week, you got nothing left.
Yeah, and this is probably a whole other podcast that we could go down, but like getting in that mindset in general of like, oh, well, I'm just doing this workout to burn more calories is like so toxic. And I've also been there, and it's so hard, but like you cannot, you just cannot go down that rabbit hole. Or if you are down that rabbit hole,
it's a tough one to climb out of.
Yeah. But it's so worth it once you climb out of it.
Yeah, and if again, like you said, it's going back to the goal.
Yeah, what is the goal? Do you want strength goals? Do you want to see your muscles look different? Do you want to feel better day to day? What do you want out of that? Do you want, your back pain to go away, or to have enough energy to play with your kids in the evening, or I don't know.
Or you're trying to increase your skill at anything else.
Yeah.
That can, like, a skill sense of being like, oh, well, I can't comfortably put 2 kettlebells over my head and walk around the floor because I don't have the mobility to do that.
Yeah.
Well, if you're always just burning calories and you're always just getting through movements as gross as possible, and that never happens, then of course there's never going to be that progress from a capability standpoint.
Yeah. Or like, I really want to get my first pull up or my first chin up. Like that's going to require a way different set of practice than doing as many banded pull-ups as you can when you go into like a session. Right.
This is a quick question to ask yourself from, there's 6 days a week of exercise people.
Yes.
This is probably 2-3 years ago, but I argued that someone who goes to the gym 7 days a week is as unhealthy as someone who skips the gym for 7 days. And I got a bunch of backlash from a bunch of exercise addicted people, and that's what I told them. It's like, well, you're addicted to exercise. This has nothing to do with you being a better, more disciplined person. Yeah. You have an addiction.
Yeah.
This is in like 2012, maybe 2011. I was in a forum. Some of you may know what forums are. Pre-social socials.
He's in a forum.
There's this high-level strength coach guy. And he was talking about this healthy addiction and healthy approach to exercise, and from a like strength and conditioning sports side. And I think it was powerlifting. It was like a strength sport coach, and he said, maybe it was bodybuilding. He was like, if you can't take a week off of exercise, you have an addiction problem. Like, if you can't mentally tell yourself that it's okay to not work out for a week, you have a problem with being addicted to exercise. You have like that's a mental challenge you really need to figure out, because that's not healthy. And I was there. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Not work out for a week?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was because I knew I was not working out for my health.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, because now, thinking about even that, like, yes, we probably have at this point in our lives taken 6 or 7 days off from, like, if we've been on a big hiking trip or something, but all we're doing is walking, you know? And I just, like, I feel better lifting a little bit, but I'm not chasing any intensity when we're going into the gym.
we have a recommendation for everybody that you should be moving through space 7 days a week.
Yes.
Right.
And we can like kind of lay out how we would best break that down in a second. But
yeah, right.
That doesn't mean you have to be like sweaty, dying 7 days a week.
So maybe the question isn't could you take, if you could not, let's say, skip the gym, whatever gym environment you're in, if you could not remove that from your life for 6 days, 7 days, you have some really tough internal questions you need to ask yourself. Not, could you do nothing for 6 days? But if I said,
I have another one to go with that. If you can also work out without looking at your calories burned on your watch.
Yeah, that's
because that's another like
that's another level.
You know, I've seen these things like, oh, does it even count if I and we have these like Whoops, but I don't really like.
No, our wearables, we use them from we look at history to learn how to be more proactive.
Yeah, and it does give good breakdowns of sleep and HRV.
We don't look at it from a sense of like, oh, I'm 60 minutes in and I've only burned blank calories. I've only earned this many points. I've only done this much stress. I've only closed this many rings. Yeah. We look at it from like accumulation of data over weeks and months and years. If we go back to the 6 days a week of the gym, if you can't skip the gym for 6 days and you could only go for walks, if that question like drives you insane, you've got some really, you need to set up a time with a therapist because you have a mental addiction to exercise.
That's hard.
Right?
Yeah.
If you can't go a week without looking at closing your rings, you really need to think about, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Right? And then, that's pretty much the good over under there. Not saying you should do that all the time, but it's a question to roll through your brain. The flip side is, have I not done anything in the last 6 days?
Yeah.
That's really a problem.
Yeah. And we touched a little bit on stress, and I went through this with my nutrition call yesterday on like, too much stress is bad, but on the flip side, on what like, have I not done anything in 7 days or 8 days and I haven't gone on a walk? Like no stress is also not a good thing. Right. So, I mean, there is like this balance, of, like some stress is good.
100%.
We want stress.
Yeah. And I think that we're part of a huge epidemic of mental depression, ADHD.
Yes.
All the side effects of mental depression, because there's not any physical stress.
Yeah.
And I think that our bodies and our brains and our spirits have been built on purpose to have manual stress as part of its equilibrium.
Yeah.
And we're just not doing it.
Yeah.
It comes back to 6 days a week of nothing is just as unhealthy as 6 days a week of intensity.
Yeah.
And how do you modulate the middle, which is what our recommendation is all the time.
Yeah.
If you're, 6 days a week, we call this muddling the middle. There's never lows, there's never highs, there's never easies, there's never hards. There's just checking the boxes of mundane middleness, which is when you do 6 days of the same stuff.
Yes.
You can never push hard. You're never required rest.
Yeah.
So there's no wonder there's no progress.
Right.
You have to have peaks and valleys.
Yeah, because it's too much where you like kind of half-ass it. Not on purpose, but you are almost forced to, because there's so many reps and not enough rest time, and
there's no capacity.
Yeah.
There's no, like, I saw someone earlier post a Tabata workout and they were doing a whole bunch of random exercises on a timer. But if you're never resting, you can never put out work.
Yeah. 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 And then also asterisk to this is like, okay, you can't make it to the gym for 7 days and all you can do is this like Tabata workout in your living room. Great.
Right.
Right.
Like,
yes. Move when you can.
What's the goal?
What can you control?
Yeah. What's the goal?
Yeah. I'm going to feel better sweating a little bit. I get it.
100%. Right.
But it doesn't have to be.
That's not a requirement.
Tabata 6 days a week or whatever.
Exactly.
It is,
if you think that's the problem. If you think you need to get your ass kicked for 22 minutes every day.
Oh, we can kick it at Prevail though.
Then that's
in a different way.
That's not the truth, right?
Yes.
That's not the truth.
Yeah. So let's talk about what would be, I mean, I know what my 7 perfect days would be for a workout schedule.
Yep.
But we can kind of like lay that out
Yep.
a little bit.
Let's say,
because we do move every day.
if you're thinking of what's the perfect 7 days that I can maintain for the next 7 months.
Yeah.
That's where the framework is.
Yeah.
Right? Because consistency is results.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to plan 7 days for 7 months,
Yes.
which would, in theory, if you can maintain it for 7 months, you can maintain it for 7 years.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
the 7-7 kind of idea.
Yeah.
I think that a baseline, you start off with, you need 2 to 4 days of resistance training.
Yes.
Right? So that's going to be like structured, heavy to medium to light weights, where that's like compound movements. You're resting more than you're working,
Mm-hmm.
and that may look
body
like
weight exercises. Yeah.
Yeah, one day you're going to do, deadlifts and presses,
Mm-hmm.
and the next, that's one day. And then another day you're going to do squats and pull-ups.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 2 days. You've hit 90% of the body's patterns.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be 2 great structured strength training sessions, right?
Mhm.
You're doing it so that it's hard enough to where you can't do less than 5. You can't go past 15.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of up in this range of like 7, 12, 10, right? You're getting to a point where it feels heavy on your body. You're getting to a point where you can't do another rep, right?
Yeah.
You just don't do 10 and you could do 20.
Yeah.
So that's the feeling you want. You do 2 to 4 days of that. However you need to figure that out,
Mhm.
right? Or you come to Prevail and we figure that out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right? And then the next thing would be cardio conditioning.
Yes.
Okay. That would be what? 1 day
One day of like steady state.
steady state easy.
Mhm.
So that would be something where you can maintain a conversation,
Yep.
but you can't sing.
Yes.
That's the kind of intensity, right?
Yeah.
You do that for 30, 45,
Mhm.
60 minutes. That'd be at
Yeah.
least 1 day.
Yes.
The next day
Uh-huh.
would be something that would be either,
Maybe this is your sprinkle of high intensity.
and maybe this is where the sprinkle of high intensity comes in.
But
right?
this is the kicker on our sort of high intensity thing,
Mhm.
is it might be a 20-minute session
Mhm.
of a 5-minute warm up,
Mhm.
10 minutes of 15 seconds of work, 45 seconds of rest,
Mhm.
and then a 5-minute cool down.
Right.
And that's my high intensity session.
Right. That's a high quality, like high intensity repeat training would be that style. So there you have 1 day easy and long, 30, 45, 60 minutes. You have another day short and fast, and that would be something that does not take more than 30 minutes total up to 20. So 20 to 30 minutes long, 5-minute warm up, 10 to 15, 20 minutes of intervals, and then 5-minute cool down. The third cardio would be something that is in between those two, and that would be where you were to do 30 minutes or 20 minutes of sustained, kind of where you can't speak, but you could say phrases. So this is kind of like a middle zone 3 approach, and that would be like if you were to go for a 40-minute jog or a run, right? That's that type of third style of conditioning. That's basically 3 energy systems that we'd recommend. Now, if you were to do 3 and 3, that would get you your 6 days. 7th day is rest. You go for a walk, right? That's like 3 days of resistance, 3 days of different types of conditioning, and 1 day of long walk. That'd be one way to do like a perfect 7 days for most people for most results, because that's going to
Yes.
get you stronger, build muscle. That's going to improve your VO2 max. That's going to improve your resting heart rate.
Yeah.
And it's also going to be something that you can modulate with intensity that you could sustain for quite a long time.
Yeah, and that's basically what we do all the time, minus
much.
if we're ramping up for like a big hike or event or something.
Yeah.
And then we just trade some stuff around.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So if we're pushing harder into strength training and muscle gain
Mm-hmm.
and body composition,
Mhm.
it's like 4 days,
Yeah, for sure.
1 day of easy,
Mm-hmm.
and then 1 day of intervals, or 1 day of like long walk.
Yes.
And that'd be like our 6.
Yeah.
And then our 7th might be an easy walk.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
something-
Just still getting like steps in and
Right.
not laying on the couch all day, basically.
Yeah. Right. And then it comes down. And then so if you put walking in there, walking would be something that would be potentially 7 days a week if you were to have a minimal effective dose of like, I'm going to go for a 15-minute walk 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or if you're like lifting, let's just say that you lift 2 days a week, you go do yoga 1 day a week, and you go do a spin class 1 day a week. That's 4 days.
Yeah.
The other 3 days could just be, oh, I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk.
Yeah.
That'd be how you could modulate 7 days a week and do that over and over and over again and get all the positives of those things with enough lull, with enough rest and recovery, so you'd have the like opportunity for adaptations.
Yeah.
Right. It would not be, I'm going to do 6 days a week of spin.
Yeah.
I'm going to do 6 days a week of
running.
I'm going to do 6 days a week of lifting. I'm going to do 6 days a week of yoga. I'm going to do 6 days a week of body pump, or I'm going to do 6 days a week of boot camp, right? That's what we're really trying to get at, is you've got to have some modulation between the types of inputs if you want progress.
Yeah.
And if you're just doing the same style of thing over and over and over and over again, are you doing it because it just makes you feel good?
Yeah.
Mentally?
Yeah.
Or are you doing it because you want progress?
Yeah. And it's, I mean, I will continue to say this because I think it's helpful, but your muscles and your body composition, they want recovery so they can change. So if you do, if you do want to look different and you do want to feel different and you want to perform different in the gym, like, you just have to take some recovery days, and that still means you can go outside and be active and go on a walk and play around and do things, go on a light bike ride or whatever, but cranking on it 7 days a week is not doing you any justice.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there.
Yeah. I mean, a traditional bodybuilding split is like, oh, I do legs, and then I do arms, and then I do shoulder, and then I do back.
Yeah.
The reason it was built that way is because they knew, and they still know, that if you have enough intensity inside of a session and you work your legs, you need 3 days of recovery from your legs before you do another one, so that they have all that window to adapt from that stimulus. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I think that on most bodybuilding splits, I don't think anyone's pushing the intensity or they're taking the right amount of drugs and protein recovery to really get that demand.
Sure.
So that's why most people never see the body composition changes they want from a bodybuilding split.
Drugs and recovery.
And then with that, but like, that also means you need to spend 6 days a week in the gym.
Yeah.
Who's got time for that? I know. Right.
What's going to happen in August? We don't know.
Right.
Okay. If you're watching it on YouTube, the audio is still playing, but my camera died, so.
Yikes. Yeah.
Hashtag creative director is
48 minutes.
Short.
There we go.
Okay.
So that's, I hope that, I don't know if that makes it more confusing. Hopefully that's some clarity.
Well, I think hopefully it's clarity if you are doing something like that 6 to 7 days a week and you're not seeing any progress and changes that you want, but you feel like you're working so hard. This is why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, I felt like this for a while.
Yeah. And I think from what I see is like, we still only see less than, who knows the hard numbers, but it's less than like 10% of the population is exercising consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 15%. And when I say consistent, like in a gym environment, like 3 days a week.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of this, if you are worried that you can't commit to exercise because you can only do it 2 to 3 days a week, we have so many people making phenomenal progress at 2 to 3 days a week in the studio.
Exactly. You don't have to not exercise because you think it has to be 6 days a week.
Yeah, you don't have to be obsessed with it. You don't have to be this like gym rat.
It does not mean, oh, I can't exercise because I can't make time. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? You're like, well, I can't go to the gym every day.
Right.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
No one's saying that you have to go to the gym every day.
Yeah.
We don't go to the gym every day. I mean, we go to our gym almost every day to like
just to touch stuff.
Touch things and poke at stuff, but say hi. But if you're not exercising, don't assume you have to do the ultimate 75 hard version to get progress.
Yeah.
That's a huge if more people understood that, more people would start exercising because it's more approachable. Because exercise is approachable for anyone when you understand the recipe. And the recipe is not every day as hard as possible.
Yeah.
That's a huge takeaway.
Yeah.
You can, because think about this. You're doing 0 exercise 7 days a week. You add in 2 60-minute sessions. You've just 200%ed your output.
200.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Okay, there you go. And if you are currently inside of that recipe, not surprised that you feel good and you move good and you're making progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? If you want any suggestions with your recipe, comment below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please comment below.
Yeah. Well, I do this and this now.
What should I do?
What should I do? What should I move around? Well, tell us what your goals are and we'll help you figure out that recipe.
Yes.
And if you're looking at somewhere to get your resistance training in and a little bit of your hard interval training in, that's what Prevail provides.
Yes.
We are here to solve the problem of how do I get smart, progressive resistance training in, and how do I sprinkle in some hard conditioning intervals. That's what we do. We're that solution, and we do that with high quality program. We do that with an awesome 16-person session full of like-minded individuals, and we do that with instructors who care, and that's what Prevail promises and delivers.
2 locations coming
And you
soon.
can do that in West Edmond and North Yukon. Hopefully
/ Northwest OKC.
/ North
area.
OKC / Deer
Surrey
Creek
Hills.
/ Piedmont / Surrey Hills, whatever it is. I would love to get into. I need to figure out. I need to
I know,
ask the
it's
internet.
confusing.
Like, what do you call this area?
Call this area.
What would you call this? Cool.
Cool.
Any thoughts?
No.
Good.
I'm hungry.
Hungry. Not surprised.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Go to Danny_Prevail to comment on anything she's doing with her 2 of hers. Ooh, jeez. And then if you are interested in the joining us at the North Yukon location in May, get on our pre-sale list at prevailstrengthofitness.com. And we are always accepting new students to our Edmond location.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay.
See you guys.